Alrighty, so this video goes along to explain my code example to extend the conversation or add a little more to whatever your output might have been. So remember, the idea here is that you've attempted this, you've posted your link, and now you're going to go through and look at somebody else's code, mine or somebody else's, and try to understand it. And what I want to do here is actually show you one of the ways you can try to understand somebody else's code examples. Okay, so I'm going to flip over to my editor and I'm going to go to the top first and just kind of look at my approach. So one of the things, like we're modeling things in the real world, both from just a data dictionary, data structure, and then from a list of data dictionaries. So the first thing I did is I just created a simple data dictionary. I apologize if I say object. This is in most programming languages, this is called an object, but that's okay. So first thing I did is added a key. And this was pretty simple. There, we saw this in Al's course, set a default. The thing I did, and I think this might be a good way to do it, is after each line that outputs something, you could just show what the output is. That way somebody can read through it quickly and look at that, right? And then check to see whether a key has already existed. We got that also from Al, which we look for the item, and if it exists, it'll give you the number back, which in my case it did, but if it doesn't, so it gives you that fallback, it shows that. And then in this case, because I asked for a key that wasn't there, it gave me back 0. And then I just outputted the, just printed the data dictionary, the DD, to show you what was in there because it did add a key value combination. So iterating over this is pretty straightforward, and there's many different ways you can do it. But I ended up doing it using the items method on my home charging. Again, this is my object. I did it again, my DD up there. So then I just iterated over them saying print out the combination of the session and then the values. Okay, so that just printed it out. Again, there's many different ways you could approach this. And then I went on and did the sorting concept. And for this one, I created a different data dictionary, more of like the number of public chargers, the number of home charging sessions, because every time you charge your car, it's called a session, the number of supercharging. And then I just wanted to use a sort. And I gave you a link for article that talked about sorted, because I don't remember, and I should probably review, but I don't remember him talking about sorted. I think we talked about sorted in relationship to just straight list, but not necessarily, again, maybe he did and I've forgotten it. But so what I did is I called the sorted method, passed in the data dictionary, and then put the method of items. And what this does is just as a straight sort, and you can see here it's doing an alphabetical sort on the key. And then I said, well, what if I want to sort by sessions? And so I did another sort, sorted, this time still with items, but then I did, and this is part of that article, and this is where I want to show you, sometimes if you see code and you're like, I'm not sure what that's doing, maybe you got it to work, but you're not sure what it's doing. Here's a really simple thing to do. And this is something that I think we learn later on, but the sooner you learn this technique, the better. And it's debugging. And so I'm going to set a breakpoint here, right? And then I'm going to go up and run with, most of you have been doing it without debugging. I'm purposely, and I recommend this, because what we're trying to do is figure out, what's this lambda doing? Which, by the way, if you don't know, then I guess you probably haven't. We haven't been exposed to this. It's a function that is an anonymous, unnamed. You're not naming the function, but you're telling it, okay, every time you look at this data dictionary, right, and iterate through here, I'm going to grab each one of these key value pairs. And in this case, it shows it, what do you want to sort by? And because it's 1, so we know, right? So 1 in this case would be here. So how do I know that? So let's actually show you this. So again, I'm going to go run, start debug here, tell it's a Python. So it's going to execute this line. I'm going to step into this. Okay. So as you see here, it's hitting the first one. Okay. And if you execute on the first item in there, okay, session peak, variable one, right? So you get a little peer into here, into what this is doing. Okay, so you see that X is home, right? So what it's doing, you can see, so each one of those key value pair combinations, it's telling it, okay, lambda 20, right? So what is this really doing? It's actually now looking to sort based on the value itself. And that's another way to sort, but what I'm trying to show you here is just another way to also look at code so that you can start understanding what that code is doing. Okay. So I highly recommend using the debug. Okay. So that's the sort. And then sort reverse was just adding the reverse to it. I need to put the output here. So imagine, what do you think just looking at this reversed would do if we outputted using the lambda for X for every key value pair and telling it to select based on the first position, right? So what is it doing? Right? It's looking at this. So if we did it reversed, so then it would just order this way to where 20 would be, and I'll put that output in there. So then on the last part of this, I did a list of data dictionaries, and this is where I came up with charging session. And then I gave it several examples of location, time, and cost. And then I use, and I've given you a link here for this, right? So filter by location allows me to, and this verbiage seems long. I know I talked to Oscar about this last night. So it's like for session, and these are variables that you can set depending on how you want your code to reference things. And so it's for every session in the charging sessions, which is my list of objects. If session location, that key is equal to home, right? Then return that into the filter location. And again, use the debugger to show you how that's running. So what is that going to do? It's going to then output only the DDs in my list that meet my criteria. Okay. So that's cool. And then I did a number of charging sessions, at home charging sessions, and then I just did a length and stringed it out. And then I decided to do one more, which was, and it's this idea of doing summary data. So what I did here, and I kind of did it a little like the old school way, but I said 4 sessions in charging sessions, right? So, and I set up a total. Now, by the way, as I was doing this, I'm like, I should totally put this in a function. That way I could pass what I wanted as far as maybe the location. So, but this got it done and I was happy with that. So it says for if session equal to supercharger, because this is what I wanted to say is how much did I spend on superchargers, right? If session equals superchargers, and then I could have done this plus equal, but I did it long form. Total equals to session, the cost of it. So grab that, first set it to 0. As you look at each DD, then pull that cost and then add it. And then after you're done with that, just print it out and it shows the cost of supercharging. Okay. So again, for this work, again, I gave you a link to here. Just make sure you've covered all the items. And again, if you want to venture out, which I kind of recommend from what we've learned, or is use, I think you should be able to use most, you may have to venture out some, but it's good to venture out. And I know many of you Google anyway, Stack Overflow and see examples. The key with using somebody else's example is taking the time to understand the way it works. That way, when you go to implement that thing in the future, you have a better grasp and ability to code something without looking at somebody's example. Not that it's bad, but that you own that knowledge yourself. Okay, hope that helps. Again, set a breakpoint, right? Run, start debugger, right? It'll ask you current code. And then you can see here if you wanted to jump over, step over what it like. If I wanted to step over that line, I could step over. I could step into, which is generally what I was doing. I can step out of it, right? I can restore it or I can stop it. So if you've never done, and I'm guessing many of you have, but I'm guessing some of you have not, done this idea of debugging, the sooner you learn this skill, and I notice students sometimes hesitate, but it's one of the things you'll see me probably emphasize in the next code review is actually having you walk through as your code demonstration, walking it through debugger. Okay, talk to you later. Hope this helped.